Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Our first story today comes to us from... Okay, hold on here. Yeah, the first story comes from that person? Okay. You want me to write a fiction? Fine, but I'm making it a good one. Let's jump right in. I'm a machinery operator in an industrial setting. This means we have a lot of trade professionals on site 24/7 to minimize the impact of any breakdowns. On this particular occasion, I had a heated press shut down on me because it was reporting a temperature of around 3,600 degrees Celsius. The required temperature range is about 275. Since I have multiple stations on this machine and it's designed with failures in mind, I'm able to just run with that one station disabled with negligible loss in production, so I put in a mid-priority work order and pretty much forget about it. Now, I'm not a ticketed professional myself, but since this is half the temperature of the surface of the sun and I didn't appear to have been immolated alive, I put the problem down as a malfunctioning sensor. A few hours later in the shift, an electrician stopped by to get more details. I'm a bit of a curious person, so in the interim, I had looked up the melting point of steel, which is what the actual contact surface of my press is. Depending on specifics, it's around 1500. The boiling point is around 2900. I expected this information to be for personal amusement only. I was wrong. I described the problem to the electrician and showed him my reading, alongside all the other stations which were normal. Obviously, I informed him that a reading in the 3000s was not possible, but he disagreed and told me maybe that's the temperature. Fair enough, I had to look it up myself, so I'm not going to fault him for not immediately realizing this reading was nonsensical. I told him that steel boils at less than the reading I gave him, but he wasn't having it, and insisted that I put in a work order parallel for the engineers. Officially, this just means the diagnosis was not immediately clear to the operator and creates a second tag with an alternate explanation so that when one tradesman closes the tag, the alternates are closed automatically. Unofficially, it would act as a black mark on my records, essentially telling the entire maintenance crew that I don't know my machines and don't know what I'm doing, and would result in more people questioning my judgments in the future. I don't have a lot of those, so I was already pretty annoyed that he was trying to push me around over this, but I can see where from his point of view, it would seem reasonable to assume that a random person just happening to know the state change temperature for metals is hard to believe. So I was still resolved to remain reasonable. I went to the supervisor instead and told him the situation, expecting him to just tell the electrician I'm in the right and to go have a look at the sensor during our next breakdown or scheduled halt. Instead, he just told me to come up with an alternate prospective diagnosis and put it in the work order. Notably, he didn't actually specify engineer as the electrician had. I should note here too that the supervisor in question is an experienced welder, meaning he should know full well how ludicrous the demand was. Well, cue the malicious compliance. Since this wasn't an urgent issue at any rate, I decided to take my time with the new work order. I reached out to manager to get the procedures for a work order that requires out-of-the-house services and government agencies. Waiting for those details meant I would be taking this home and finishing it up on my own time, but at this point I was invested. I actually went through drafts on this thing, but the finished product was a masterpiece of BS. Since 3600 degrees would have sublimated my entire machine, I worked under the assumption that my lungs had been coated with various aerosolized metals that were blocking whatever little function my lungs could possibly retain after being exposed to apocalyptic temperatures. I explained that all the events since encountering the reading must therefore be hallucinations brought on by my failing brain as I succumbed to a certain death. I made a point to detail how grateful I was that the delusion had apparently isolated me from the mind-melting agony my body must be in. I summarized my last will and testament, in the vague hope that my dying utterances, it might actually be communicated to somebody still alive in reality. I recommended immediate contact with Environment Canada for disaster cleanup. I requested a specific funeral home, but specified that I did not wish to be cremated. I also made a point to mention by name the two people who had graciously informed me that my equipment could be expected to function normally in the temperature range of a sunspot. These work orders are the size of a postcard, and the actual request part is typically 4 to 15 words. I handed this sucker in with 3 sheets of foolscap stapled to it. If it had actually been processed, it would have created a mountain of paperwork, since I can't imagine Environment Canada reacting well to receiving a major disaster notification, followed by, actually sorry, never mind, one of our employees is being a butthole. Predictably, I was hauled in to speak with management before noon that day to explain myself. I did receive a write-up, which I refused to sign and demanded a union rep on hand, since I had no way to follow my orders without being ridiculous. They declined to bring one in, so that should be the end of that. The faulty sensor had been replaced by the time I got back to my machine. Now, I'm not one who really knows how unions work, but I think you're supposed to have that representative with you whenever you get into a disciplinary meeting like that, so that seems to me like it didn't go properly. Just be careful, OP, because after that stunt, they've probably marked you as a troublemaker and a problem that might need to be solved in the future. Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our next story today comes to us from Plurked. I got exposed to COVID. Just wear gloves. Let's jump right in. This was last summer when I was an assistant manager at a Domino's. My state was one of the worst ones to live in during the pandemic. We were one of the ones who didn't completely shut down. We had a curfew, but hardly anyone enforced it. My youngest child's father and I have a 50-50 custody agreement where we basically alternate having her 3 to 4 days a week every week. I'll have her the first half, he the latter half. Now, this was a Wednesday and I would go drop my daughter off at her paternal grandma's house. When I got there, her dad was there and I was met with a blunt, "So we've been exposed to COVID," as I let my 2-year-old run in. No text message, no call, nothing to tell me ahead of time to not bring my child over. I asked how, and apparently, he and his mom had a lady who lived down the street that they would help out. She had a medley of health problems, and I guess she was too ashamed to tell them she tested positive. I don't care, no excuse to put people in danger. I freaked out, like, why would you tell me 15 minutes before I have to go to work? They kinda just shrugged and didn't say anything. I don't like arguing with these people. You can't fix stupid sometimes. I decided to leave our daughter there since, if anything were to happen, they live 5 minutes from the hospital, whereas I lived in the neighboring town that had no big hospital. I got in my car and was called by my GM. Now, for a little of a backstory, my GM is an absolute piece of work. He's a nice dude, but he absolutely sees his job as a title and a perk as opposed to being a responsibility. He's a year younger than me, can't manage his finances, and has a knack for nepotism. That being said, I was his friend before getting hired, but he wasn't the GM at the time of my hiring. I actually almost didn't get hired because of that, but I proved myself, and the old GM and I are still really good friends. In the last year, he had hired his mom, his girlfriend, his baby mama, and his best friend, all of which lived in the same house. We also moved to a new location, which was nice, but also stressful. He and his girlfriend welcomed her first, his second child, a son, that February, and he had a 5-year-old with his baby mama, who he made his other assistant manager. In her defense, she used to be the GM of Taco Bell, but quit and came to Domino's, so she did have some experience. Not that she gave a crap, nor did he. He was the type of manager who was friends with everyone, but if it came down to confrontation, he absolutely couldn't do it. If drivers started throwing cussing tantrums in front of customers, instead of writing them up and sending them home, he'd scream and cuss back. He had no issue nitpicking me for stupid crap like leaving half-full pans in the cooler, like you're supposed to, just because he didn't want to make extra trips to fill things in the morning, which is literally his job. Now that we've laid the scene of where I worked and who I worked with, I give him a call to explain what literally just happened. "Hey GM, I just found out that I may have been exposed to COVID in the last 10 minutes. Yeah, I wait. Wow, okay, you'll have to call baby mama and see if she can take your shift." Me rolling my eyes, knowing darn well she's lazy, and plays the pregnancy card. Oh yeah, she is also pregnant with her boyfriend's baby, who also lives with them, meaning their 5-year-old got 2 new siblings in the same year. Okay, I'll let you know. I call her, she doesn't answer. I call her on Messenger, she answers and hangs up. I message her and tell her it's me, she calls, I answer, I explain. When I say, "Would you be able to cover for me?" Click. Really? Now I'm mad. You can just say no instead of playing phone tag with me. I message the GM and head home. He tells me, well, if she can't come in, you have to work. Are you effing joking right now? I have to go get tested. Do you feel any symptoms? It literally just happened, and you can be asymptomatic. Yeah, but you're an essential employee. You can work during COVID. At this point, my professionalism went completely out the door. Again, I couldn't believe how stupid people can be. A, I've never received any form of documents stating I'm essential. Even though I'm a food worker, I call BS. B, even if I am, that doesn't mean you work with COVID, you idiot. I can get everyone else sick. What will you do if everyone comes down with COVID because you made me come to work? Again, this was all over Messenger, so I couldn't hear his tone, but I could sense the smugness. If it happens, we'll figure it out. Be on oven, just wear a mask and gloves, and try to stay 6 feet away from everyone. I'm livid now. Being on oven means cutting the food, not putting it in a 350-degree oven to kill germs. And the oven is 3 feet away from the computer drivers need to sign in and out on. Also, the heat rack is right next to the cutting table. There is no possible way that his logic will work. Well, as said, he also hired his girlfriend, who had just had a baby 5 months prior. I also had a few other employees who had elderly parents and children who took the pandemic as seriously as I did. Cue malicious compliance. The people I mentioned were all on shift that night, so I went. I put on a mask and some vinyl gloves I had at home, opened the back door, knowing people would come to me since I was in charge. I find out GM had left before I even let him know the status of his baby mama. He literally left because he didn't want me to confront him to his face, which was fine. His girlfriend was on her way in. The first one that walked towards me was a driver who never keeps his mouth shut. Perfect for my plan. Stay away, I've been exposed. His eyes widen, and he immediately turns and walks the other way. I stay in the back in the office and wait for everyone else to come back, especially after being told what I said. My closest friend there comes to the back looking puzzled. I tell her bluntly what happened and showed her, from afar, the exchange between GM and me. I was in tears because I knew how mad everyone would be for me showing up, but I was making a point. She immediately told me to hang on and called GM's girlfriend, who was pulling in at the time. Again, she had a brand new baby. When she was told, she was even more furious than me. GM came home and didn't even bother telling her or giving her a heads up, so she called him and cussed him out. I, being the one in charge, asked them, "What do you want me to do? Go home, we got this. Sorry GM made you come in." "No, I'm sorry for coming in and putting you at risk, but he literally told me to." I was gone for a week, negative test, and everyone was angry with GM. He never owned up to it or apologized, and I was out of line for coming in the first place and risking everyone. But darn, why are people in authority positions so ignorant to common sense? OP did mention in an edit at the end, it says, since there's some misunderstanding, after I left, I self-isolated for about a week, then got tested. I didn't just immediately go and get tested. I waited to see if I got symptoms, and then got tested to make extra sure. This was also July of 2020, and I worked 50 hours a week, so I wasn't entirely informed on how to react. I was panicked, since I have a crappy immune system. Well, OP, two things should have happened in that situation. You should have reported your GM to corporate Domino's and your store to the health department, because they made you come in when you were possibly infected. That is not a good thing. Our next story today comes to us from Mama Pause. Leave my window open? No problem. Let's jump right in. So to begin with, this happened several years ago. I was 18, just moved into the dorms at my university, and met my roommate. Let's call her May. She had a very petty, mean girl personality, but honestly, I've never been bothered by stuff like that. She was a germaphobe, so I didn't mind cleaning our shared shower and bathroom after using it, since she did too. I even let her use my microwave and mini fridge, so as a general rule, we got along. Our dorms were divided into pods, with each pod having 2 bedrooms and a bath in each room, fitting 2 people. Well, May happened to know the girl in the other pod, Danielle. Danielle's roommate never showed up, so May moved over there, and boom, my very own room. The issue started in late October when the temperatures dropped regularly. See, I'm a very warm-bodied person. I get hot easily, and my ideal room temperature is around 65 degrees, doable in the winter. In the summer, I obviously hover more at 73 because AC is too expensive. Either May or Danielle liked a hot room, so our shared thermostat sat at 78 regularly, and I was always sweaty and miserable. I tried turning it down to 70, but they got angry and reported me for harassment, which went nowhere, but still. Finally, one day, Danielle told me I wasn't allowed to touch it. Excuse me? I think I pay to live here too. And if I was hot, just to open a window. What a marvelous idea. Our rooms had locks, and May traded her key to my room for a key to Danielle's room. So I was thrilled to open my windows. Both windows remained open 24/7, and I slept like a baby every night. The thermostat now read a solid 68 most constantly, which meant my room was nice and cold, and likely so was theirs. May talked to me and tried to make me shut them, but I told her no. If you guys are cold, you can put on a jacket or buy a space heater. Danielle even tried begging me to shut it, and then talked to an RA about my behavior. All the RA said was that in my room, I was allowed to open the window, and that's what I did. My comfort wasn't any concern to them, so why should I care about theirs? They started doing petty things like breaking the plates I offered to share, making my microwave in our small common space stink, etc. So I moved those into my room, and they were left having to buy their own supplies. When the end of the second semester came and I was moving out, Danielle confronted me for ruining her dorm life. What? Because she could never be comfortable wearing as little as she wanted, and I remember laughing at her. I reminded her she's the one who suggested opening my windows, and she's the one who refused to compromise on the room temperature. That was the only year I lived in the dorms on campus, but boy was it a hoot. Funny thing is, I spent most of my time out of the room anyway because of class, work, scholarship activities, and hanging out with my friends. So if she would have kept the thermostat at, say, 72 to 73 degrees, we never would have had a problem. Oh well. I've always said that I would much rather be cold than warm because if you're cold, you can keep on putting on layers until you're warm enough. But if you're really warm, you can only take off so much before it's illegal. Check out all 3 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.